back to Legal Matters with the American Law Firm. I'm Mike Garrigan, and my guest is attorney John Hansen with the American Law Firm. Legal Matters is an informational and news call-in show devoted to a variety of legal topics of interest to State Line viewers. We have attorneys standing by right now at the number on your screen. That's 394-1776. Attorneys who will provide you with free information regarding your issues. So call now and throughout the next hour. Time now for tonight's opening statement. John and I are going to look at a wide range of current events or news stories making headlines, and we will talk about some of the legal issues surrounding those stories and how they can relate to us. But before we get started tonight, I'd like to remind you of the viewers of the multiple practice areas that the American Law Firm concentrates in. The American Law Firm is a general practice law firm that concentrates in divorce and family law cases, auto accident, injury and Social Security disability issues, bankruptcy, DUI, traffic and criminal defense, advanced care planning and probate, real estate, and business, and also immigration. So please feel free to call tonight and discuss any of these practice areas with the attorneys standing by. And first of all, John, why don't you tell us just a little bit more about the American Law Firm?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on the show. And American Law Firm is a general practice law firm, as you mentioned, and that means we represent clients in many different areas of law. We are located in Rockford, near the intersection of Mulford and State. We have many attorneys and a large pool of legal staff, and we are excited to be here.
Yes, and you know, a lot of people visit the doctor on a regular basis. They understand what's going on when they visit the doctor office. Maybe not when you go to a law office or a law firm.
Right.
Can you kind of ease people's minds and kind of tell them what they can expect?
Yeah, it is kind of a first time for a lot of people when they come see us, and I know it does take a lot of courage and guts to come in and talk to a perfect stranger almost about your personal issues, whatever they are, even if it's something like adoption or something positive. It still takes courage. So we try a few things to make it smoother and easier for people to come in and see us. A couple things are we offer free consultations in our office in almost any area of law that we practice. And so clients can come in first and just walk through their issues with us, and we can kind of talk about what their goals are and how to reach those goals in a comfortable setting. Yeah. And if there is a possibility of us being retained, we have a couple things financially that work for clients, like simple flat fees for attorney's fees on cases. So clients can know up front how much a case is going to cost. And also for clients in a financial bind, we'll do payment plans in a lot of situations. So a few different things out there to try to ease that transition for what can be a intimidating and new experience for a lot of folks.
And stressful at times, so ease that stress
for sure.
Right away. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be looking at some current topics in the news and discussing how they may play a role in the viewers' lives. Let's start with the recent stories coming out about the death of James Brady last month. You may recall he was severely wounded by a bullet in 1981 on the attack on then President Ronald Reagan. Brady died on August 4th, and it has now been ruled a homicide stemming from that 1981 shooting. However, it is unclear whether the attacker, John Hinckley Jr., who's still in jail, will be prosecuted. So, John, what lessons are to be learned from that whole thing?
Sure. You know, Brady's death being ruled a homicide is a little unusual because of the time gap. You know, it's been 33 years since the bullet was fired. But apparently, you know, his health has suffered since then, all these years. The big issue is Hinckley's being charged or not. As you may know, he was found not guilty by reason of insanity back in the 80s when he was charged with the shooting of Brady. And so a lot of experts are saying that if he's charged again, it would be double jeopardy, which is actually not legal. So there's big issues with that case. And I think for viewers and the rest of us, the lesson to be learned is if there is a criminal charge in the viewer's life or someone they know, there's a lot of defenses out there that can be available to help somebody. Obviously not insanity for most people, but there's just a lot to talk about when it comes to criminal charges. And we definitely invite people to call the number on the screen right now if they have anybody in their life or themselves who maybe have some criminal defense questions. We have a criminal defense department, and there's just a lot of different ways to look at a charge and different ways to approach it. And I think that's a big lesson with the Hinckley story.
All right, let's try to learn some lessons with family law. And the super couple, entertainer Jay-Z and Beyonce, are in the news regarding unfortunate rumors of a possible divorce. Their baby daughter, Blue Ivy, who is 2, may be involved in a custody arrangement if that pans out. So what thoughts come to mind from a legal standpoint when it comes to a divorce with especially minor children?
Yeah, you know, whatever happens with that couple, there's definitely things to think about if a divorce is looming for people, or if it's a girlfriend, boyfriend who have a baby and there's a paternity case looming. When it comes to custody, if there's a dispute in court, it can get pretty vicious because it basically becomes a battle of who's best fit to be the parent, the father or the mother. And you'll have a lot of personal things come out in court in a public setting. And divorce cases and paternity cases are public records, so people can go through a court file if they want to. So it can be a very difficult issue to fight over in a divorce, much more difficult normally than dividing up assets or allocating debts, although those sometimes can be difficult too. So it's best to come in and talk to us, call the number on the screen, get some pointers, if you will, on how to approach a possible divorce. What's the best position to be in if you're wanting to get custody of a child or children? What's the best thing to avoid if you're trying to, line up custody? And there's a lot of things you can do before a divorce is filed to make that happen. So whatever happens with Jay-Z and Beyonce, the lesson to be learned is you can never get into a law firm too early to at least get some answers on potential marital issues or girlfriend, boyfriend, parenting issues.
Okay, well, why don't we take a break right now and remind you that you can call the attorney standing by live at the number on your screen. That's 394-1776. And they will talk one-on-one with you about your specific concerns. Again, the American Law Firm has attorneys standing by right now. Well, Tony Stewart, Robin Williams, they've been dominating the news in recent weeks. We'll talk about the legal aspects stemming from those two tragic stories when Legal Matters continues. Welcome back. It's Mike Garrigan and attorney John Hansen from the American Law Firm, continuing to talk legal matters that affect many state liners. And if you want to talk to an attorney from the American Law Firm right now, live for free, all you have to do is call the number on your screen. The attorneys are standing by, and again, it's a free call. And in a news story closer to home now, we'll talk about the new Illinois law recently passed. It means drivers will no longer need to hand over their driver's license in exchange for a traffic citation. So, John, what should viewers be aware of in this area?
Yeah, well, it was good news for a lot of people because in the old days you would have to give your plastic driver's license in exchange for a ticket. And Governor Quinn signed a recent law, he calls it the sign and drive law, where now your signature on the citation is sufficient for the police to guarantee that you're going to appear in court. And so now you can keep your license. And Governor Quinn recognized that it's kind of difficult when you don't have a license because you use it for other things besides driving. It's your ID. So now it's going to be a much simpler deal. And we've had a lot of clients come in the past talk about traffic tickets and some of the issues concerned with that. And a couple of things people need to know beyond this sign and drive law is that there's a lot of strict laws with traffic issues and driving issues in Illinois. And such things as court supervision can be a problem. If you're on court soup and you get a ticket, it can suddenly cause 2 citations to be convicted. DUIs are very complex, and so if anyone has any questions, we have a driving defense department. We have a attorney that gets license reinstatements done as well. So any driving issues, call us up. We can talk about your situation. But I think this law was a good idea, and it's kind of good news for a lot of people. Okay, well, kind of sticking with driving, also talking some personal injury. Driver Tony Stewart was in the news for a very unfortunate event last month after his car collided on a racetrack with another driver who was on foot. The collision killed the other driver who may have been confronting Stewart. So when it comes to vehicular injuries and deaths, what are some things that we need to know? Maybe not specifically on a racetrack, but just in general. Yeah, when we've all driven and we've all had close calls with other cars, and so hitting something and injuring somebody can be a real possibility for a lot of people. There's 2 sides of the issue with Tony Stewart's story and any story that involves hitting something like that or somebody. There's a criminal defense side, and then there's a personal injury side, like you mentioned. Tony Stewart may or may not face some kind of criminal charges eventually, and it wouldn't necessarily be for homicide. I mean, right. I'm not licensed in New York. I don't know New York laws where the accident happened, but many states have lesser charges like negligent homicide or reckless driving. And then, regardless of that, the family of the deceased driver might have a personal injury wrongful death case against him. And so for the rest of us out there, if we're in a car accident, we've been injured, or if we injure somebody else and we're facing some tickets or charges, definitely come in and see us. Call that number on the screen right now. Even if it's busy, keep calling to try to get through, because there's a lot of serious ramifications of an accident that people need to be aware of. For sure. Have to protect yourself for sure, yes. Let's step into family law right now. Grandparents are frequently involved in their children's divorces or paternity cases, often from the sidelines. So what rights do grandparents have in terms of seeing their children? Yeah, in Illinois, grandparents do have rights to see grandchildren, and that would be visitation rights primarily. There's certain kind of candidacy that somebody has to meet as a grandparent in order to enforce those rights. couple examples would be if the child, who's actually the parent, is out of the picture, for example, passed away, God forbid, or in prison or something like that. That's a vehicle for the grandparents to step in and enforce some time. Also, the grandparents, we need to show that there's some benefit the grandchild could be getting that they're not getting, and that the denial of visitation is unreasonable. So if anyone's out there that knows grandparents who have issues not seeing their grandchildren, or if the viewers themselves have that issue, call us up and we'll talk about whether their particular situation fits within that narrow category.
Well, Tony Stewart was tragic in August. Another tragic news story in August was the passing of Robin Williams. He recently passed away, suicide, left behind a wife and adult children. Williams famously battled with many issues, but was a very successful and admired artist. But in terms of what he has left behind, John, how can this kind of tragedy affect the family in terms of his passing and on the estate?
Yeah, it's a sad ending of a brilliant career, and he's famously wrestled with certain issues. And what brings to mind in that sense is estate planning primarily. Somebody, anybody basically who has a family, whether they're worth a lot of money or not worth any money, should have a will set up and a power of attorney for health care, a couple other documents too, that just set aside your wishes as for what you want to have happen when you pass away. And primarily, if somebody viewing this show knows a person who's unable to make their own decisions, whether it's an elderly person with dementia, Alzheimer's, or mental illness, there's guardianship that can be set up where someone else is helping them run their life, and power of attorneys. Those are a couple of examples of things that come to mind when you have someone battling medical issues, mental issues, and when it comes to passing an estate, a will and sometimes a trust can be very important and very wise thing to do early on.
All right, well, we have just ran out of time, so we will stop right there. But a lot of good conversation there about a lot of different topics and a lot of different aspects of law. Once again, though, lawyers from American Law Firm are standing by right now to take your calls, and then we will be back with a closing statement once Legal Matters returns.